Don't drink that. The whisper sliced through the laughter at the table, but only Evelyn Ross seemed to hear it. It was her 60th birthday, a night meant for cake and family, not warnings in the dark. Yet there it was, her wine glass trembling in her hand as everyone around her kept smiling, unaware. And then her daughter-in-law leaned forward, glass raised, and declared with a smile too sharp to be friendly, "My ex will always be in my life, unless you disappear." The room froze. Evelyn's son forced a laugh, but his eyes betrayed confusion, even fear. This wasn't a joke. This was a threat, served with steak and red wine. If you're already feeling the tension, hit subscribe right now so you don't miss what happens next. And while you're here, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it for you right now? Don't drink that. The whisper didn't belong to anyone at the table. Evelyn Ross knew every voice in her family, and this one was different. Low, urgent, almost rattling against the air like a warning carried on smoke. She froze, her fingers tightening around the stem of her wine glass. Around her, the restaurant was alive with comfort and celebration. Briarwood Steakhouse was one of those Atlanta favorites with exposed brick walls, golden lighting that made everyone look warm and alive, and the smell of garlic butter drifting from every plate. It was the kind of place you went to celebrate milestones, birthdays, anniversaries, moments that mattered. Tonight was supposed to be her moment. 60 years old, widowed but still vibrant, still strong. She had been looking forward to this night all week. At the table, her son Lucas leaned back in his chair, laughing at something his wife Kendra had just said. Kendra, so polished, so perfect on the surface. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, her lipstick flawless. She looked like the image of the ideal daughter-in-law. But Evelyn had learned over the years that perfection could cut sharper than glass. The whisper still echoed in Evelyn's ears. Don't drink that. Her pulse quickened. She glanced down at the deep red liquid swirling in her glass. The wine smelled rich, earthy, normal. Nothing seemed out of place, and yet her hand trembled as if her body knew something she didn't. Then, without warning, Kendra raised her own glass and leaned forward, her eyes fixed directly on Evelyn. Her smile was too wide, her words too crisp as she declared, "My ex will always be in my life, unless you disappear." The table went silent. Forks clinked against plates and then stopped. The only sound was the faint hum of jazz from the restaurant speakers. Evelyn blinked, convinced she must have misheard. "Excuse me?" she whispered. Lucas chuckled nervously, placing his hand over Kendra's. "She's just joking, Mom." His voice carried that forced levity children use when they're caught between loyalty and embarrassment. "Right, honey?" Kendra's lips curved again, but this time the smile didn't reach her eyes. She said nothing, just tapped her perfectly manicured nails against the base of her wine glass, tap, 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 before taking a long sip. Evelyn's stomach tightened. This wasn't a joke. Her gaze shifted around the table. Cousins chatted softly, trying to break the awkward silence. Her sister-in-law cleared her throat and muttered something about the breadsticks. Everyone wanted to move on, but Evelyn couldn't. Her eyes flicked again to the wine in front of her. She remembered the whisper. She remembered the way Kendra had looked at her when she spoke those words. And suddenly, for the first time all night, Evelyn didn't feel like she was celebrating her birthday. She felt like she was sitting in the center of something dangerous, something carefully staged, something meant for her. Her hand tightened around the stem of her glass. "Don't drink that." She tried to laugh it off, to be rational. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she was imagining things. But her instincts screamed otherwise. For years, people had underestimated her. At 60, she was supposed to be slowing down, fading into a quiet routine of gardening and church socials. But Evelyn knew herself. She knew when danger was close. She had felt it the night her husband had that heart attack. The night she got the call that changed her life. And she felt it now, sitting across from the woman her son loved, the woman who might be smiling while planning her ruin. Kendra's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced down quickly, typed something, then slid it face down again. Her expression never changed. Smooth, controlled, cold. Evelyn forced herself to breathe. Her son was watching her. The rest of the family wanted her to keep the peace, but she couldn't shake the unease. And then, almost without thinking, she made a choice. She shifted slightly in her chair, leaned forward, and, when no one was looking, she swapped her glass with Kendra's. The exchange was subtle, barely noticeable, hidden beneath the clatter of dishes and the chatter of waiters moving between tables. Her hand shook as she set the glasses back down. No one seemed to notice. Not yet. Kendra lifted the glass in front of her without hesitation. She didn't even look down. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. Kendra's lips touched the rim and she drank. And for the first time that night, Evelyn felt a flicker of control. But it was fleeting, because in her heart she knew this was only the beginning. Kendra set her glass down with a satisfied sigh, her lipstick leaving a faint crimson print on the rim. She hadn't noticed the swap, or maybe she had, and didn't care. Evelyn kept her hands folded tightly in her lap, her nails pressing crescents into her palms. Her son was still watching her, confusion swimming in his eyes. "Mom," Lucas said softly, leaning toward her. "You okay?" She wanted to nod. She wanted to smile, to pretend everything was fine. But the words his wife had spoken moments earlier replayed like a haunting refrain. "My ex will always be in my life, unless you disappear." Evelyn glanced around the table. Her sister-in-law was buttering bread, deliberately avoiding eye contact. Her niece scrolled her phone under the tablecloth. No one wanted to touch what had just been said. Pretend it hadn't happened. Pretend it was a slip of the tongue. But Evelyn had been alive long enough to know better. Sometimes the ugliest truths came wrapped in laughter. "Kendra," Evelyn said, her voice steady despite the storm in her chest. "What exactly did you mean by that?" The younger woman tilted her head, that same smile etched onto her face. "Oh, Evelyn, don't take everything so seriously. You know how I get after a couple glasses of wine." A couple glasses? Evelyn thought. She had barely seen her drink all night, and the way her words had landed, sharp, calculated, deliberate, wasn't the product of tipsy rambling. Lucas rubbed the back of his neck, chuckling nervously. "She's joking, Mom. Just a joke. Right, babe?" Kendra reached over, touched his hand, and nodded. "Of course. Just teasing. You know how much I adore family." The words were syrupy sweet, but Evelyn caught the quick glance, the flicker of something cold in Kendra's eyes as they met hers across the table. That wasn't adoration. That was a challenge. The waitress appeared, breaking the tension with a too bright smile. "Everything tasting good tonight?" The table erupted in polite agreement. Delicious, wonderful, perfect. Anything to cover the jagged silence that had sliced through dinner minutes earlier. Evelyn forced a smile, too. She thanked the waitress, waited for her to leave, then pushed her plate slightly away. Suddenly, her appetite was gone. Her stomach churned, not from the food, but from unease. The whisper, the threat, the way her son brushed it off. She felt trapped, boxed into a moment that no one else wanted to acknowledge. And then she noticed it. Kendra's hand, drumming against the wooden table. A faint, steady rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. Her nails hit the wood like the tick of a clock, patient and purposeful. Evelyn's chest tightened. This wasn't drunken clumsiness. This was control, calculation. And it terrified her. "Let's make a toast," Lucas said suddenly, lifting his glass in an attempt to restore normalcy. His voice was too bright, too forced. "To my mom, the strongest woman I know. 60 looks amazing on you." The table raised their glasses, laughter bubbling up again like nothing had happened. Kendra raised hers too, her glass, the one Evelyn had swapped with her. She clinked it gently against Evelyn's, their eyes locking in a silent duel. "Here's to Evelyn," Kendra said smoothly. "May the next chapter of your life be unforgettable." Evelyn swallowed hard. The word unforgettable sat in the air like smoke, twisting into something darker the longer it lingered. She lifted her glass but didn't drink. Not yet. Not while Kendra was watching. And then, just as Evelyn placed the glass back down, she noticed something odd. Kendra's lips were pale. Her hand, the one drumming moments ago, trembled slightly as she set her own glass aside. It was subtle. So subtle that no one else seemed to notice. But Evelyn did. And in that instant, she realized something chilling. If her instincts were right, and if that glass really had been meant for her, then Kendra had just taken the first sip. The laughter at the table swelled again, artificial but convincing enough for anyone watching nearby. To the other diners at Giovanni's Trattoria, it was just another Friday night, families clinking glasses, couples stealing bites off each other's plates, waiters balancing trays of pasta and wine. But Evelyn couldn't focus on any of it. Her eyes kept darting to Kendra, who was smiling, laughing, sipping casually at the wine she wasn't supposed to be drinking. That should have been my glass, Evelyn thought. She picked at her salad, her stomach roiling with unease. And then it happened. Kendra's laughter stuttered. She coughed once, twice, then pressed a hand to her chest. "Excuse me," she muttered, her voice tight. At first, no one reacted. Lucas continued telling a story about work. Evelyn's niece snorted at something on her phone. But Evelyn was watching. Always watching. Kendra's complexion was shifting, pale 1 second, flushed the next. She gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles whitening. "Allison," Lucas whispered, leaning closer. "You okay?" She coughed again, harder this time. A fork clattered from her hand to the floor. "Just water." The restaurant noise dimmed, as if the whole room had taken notice. A server hurried over, glass of water in hand. Kendra reached for it, but her fingers shook so violently the glass tipped, spilling across the table. "Call 911!" Evelyn heard someone shout. Lucas was on his feet now, fumbling with his phone, his voice cracking as he tried to explain the situation to the dispatcher. The rest of the table sat frozen, eyes wide, mouths open, no one sure what to do. Evelyn stood, her chair scraping against the hardwood. She reached Kendra just as the younger woman's body jerked once, then slumped sideways. Lucas caught her before she hit the ground. Gasps rippled through the restaurant. A baby started crying at the next table. Somewhere in the kitchen, a pan crashed to the floor. As she watched paramedics rush through the door minutes later, Evelyn's heart thudded in her chest. It should have been me. The words echoed over and over in her head like a tolling bell. Whatever had been in that wine, it was never meant for Kendra. Her pulse quickened, not with sympathy, but with terror. If someone at this table wanted her gone, then nothing, not family, not laughter, not birthdays, was sacred anymore. The ride to St. Jude Medical Center blurred into chaos, sirens wailing, red lights streaking across glass. Evelyn sat wedged between her son and a paramedic, her hands trembling. Kendra was strapped to the gurney, oxygen mask pressed against her face, an IV already started. The monitors beeped a rhythm that sounded far too fragile. The paramedic muttered medical jargon, heart arrhythmia, possible toxin ingestion, digoxin levels. Evelyn clung to the words, not fully understanding but recognizing enough to confirm her fear. This wasn't food poisoning. This was deliberate. Hours later, when the waiting room had thinned and Lucas had finally dozed off in a chair, Evelyn stepped into the hallway to breathe. That's when she felt a hand slip a folded note into hers. She froze, glancing up, but the figure was already walking away. A young woman, dark hair pulled into a bun, hospital badge swinging from her scrubs. Evelyn unfolded the note with shaking hands. 4 words were scrawled across the paper. You weren't the first. Her breath caught. Who was this stranger? What did she know? And, most terrifying of all, what had Kendra dragged Evelyn into? The words buzzed in her skull like a hornet. Her eyes darted down the hallway where the figure had vanished, but all she saw now were nurses moving briskly between rooms, their shoes squeaking against polished linoleum. Her heart hammered. Who had given her this, and why? She looked again at the paper, the handwriting hurried, almost desperate. For a long moment she considered throwing it away, pretending it was nothing more than a cruel joke. But something deep inside told her the note was the most important clue she had ever held in her life. Later that night, as she sat in the waiting room with her son dozing fitfully beside her, Evelyn spotted the same young woman. Dark hair pulled back, navy scrubs, badge clipped to her chest. Jada Carter, CNA. Evelyn's pulse quickened. She stood, careful not to wake Lucas, and crossed the room. You, she whispered, her voice shaking. Did you give me this? She held up the folded note. Jada's eyes flicked toward the cameras in the ceiling, then back to Evelyn. Not here, she murmured. Come with me. They slipped into the dimly lit staff break room. Jada closed the door behind them, her hands trembling slightly as she poured coffee she didn't drink. My grandmother died in this hospital, she began, her voice low but urgent. Last year, the doctor said it was her heart, natural causes. She paused, her eyes burning with something sharper than grief. But I knew it wasn't natural, not after what I saw. Evelyn leaned forward. What did you see? Jada swallowed. The same symptoms your daughter-in-law had tonight. The same. Everything. Except my grandmother didn't survive. She never had the chance. Evelyn's skin prickled. Are you saying someone here is doing this? On purpose? Jada nodded. And not just here. I've tracked cases, nursing homes, hospitals, even family dinners just like yours. Always the same story. Always someone older, someone in the way. Her voice cracked. And nobody listens. Because who believes a CNA over a grieving family? Who believes a young woman with no authority? The fluorescent light above them flickered once, buzzing faintly. Evelyn's throat went dry. She thought of Kendra's words at dinner, the way she had smiled with that stiff, rehearsed grin, the way her hand had tapped against the table in that steady, deliberate rhythm. If Jada was telling the truth, then Evelyn wasn't the first. And if she wasn't the first, she might not be the last. Jada leaned closer, her voice a rasp. You need to understand something, Evelyn. Whoever tried to poison you. She stopped, glanced at the door as footsteps passed in the hall. They've done this before, and if we don't stop them, they'll do it again. Evelyn's heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear the rest. Jada pulled a folded file from her bag, slid it across the table. Inside were photographs, medical charts, and obituary clippings. Evelyn's breath hitched as she flipped through them. Different faces, different towns, different families. But the same cold truth tying them all together. And one photo, paper-clipped to the top of the file, made her blood run cold, because standing in the background of that picture, smiling faintly at the camera, was someone she recognized. A church picnic. A group of smiling families lined up in front of a folding table covered with red and white checkered cloth. Children running in the background, balloons tied to folding chairs, the kind of scene that should have radiated nothing but joy. But her eyes weren't on the crowd. They were locked on the background figure. Standing just a few feet behind the smiling family was a woman with chestnut brown hair, a neat cardigan, and that same stiff smile Evelyn knew all too well, Kendra, her daughter-in-law. Evelyn's denial. Her breath hitched. No, she whispered, this This isn't possible. Jada leaned forward. You recognize her, don't you? Evelyn's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her mind reeled, flashing back to the dinner table, to the cold way Kendra's eyes had lingered on her, to the words that had sliced through the night like a blade. My ex will always be in my life, unless you disappear. She wanted to deny it, to dismiss the photo as coincidence, a trick of memory. But deep down, Evelyn knew. The woman in that picture wasn't just Kendra. It was proof. Proof that this wasn't random. Proof that the danger sitting across from her at every family dinner wasn't imagined. That picture was taken in Macon, Georgia, Jada said, her voice tight. 2 years ago, the woman in front. Her name was Clara Jensen. She was 75. She died that night. Sudden cardiac arrest, they called it. She tapped the medical chart clipped to the file. Exact same symptoms we saw tonight. Exact same toxin found in her system during testing. And do you know who was the last person seen with her? Evelyn swallowed hard, but she already knew the answer. Kendra. Jada nodded. Evelyn's inner spiral. Her vision blurred, tears stinging her eyes. Her son, her only child. He had married into this, into her. Did he know? Could he know? Was Lucas just blind with love? Or was he complicit? The thought was so heavy, so suffocating, she had to grip the edge of the table to stay upright. Jada's voice broke through the storm. Evelyn, listen to me. This isn't just about you. If what I think is true, your family is part of a larger pattern. And unless we stop it... She stopped, her gaze flicking toward the door. The break room door creaked open. Lucas stood there, his face pale, his eyes flicking between the two women. Mom? His voice was sharp, suspicious. What's going on here? Evelyn's heart nearly stopped. She shoved the file shut, sliding it toward Jada, but not before Lucas caught sight of the papers. He stepped into the room, jaw tightening. What the hell is that? Jada tensed, her hand instinctively pressing against the file. Evelyn could feel the air crackle with danger. This was the moment. If Lucas saw too much, if Kendra found out... Her son took a step closer. His voice was low, dangerous. Tell me the truth, Mom. What are you hiding from me? Evelyn opened her mouth, but before she could speak, Jada whispered something that froze her blood cold. Don't. Trust. Him. The words hung heavy in the stale hospital air. Her son, the boy she had raised, loved, sacrificed everything for, was now a question mark, and Evelyn had no idea if she was safer with him, or without him. Lucas stepped fully into the break room, the overhead light buzzing faintly as the door clicked shut behind him. Mom, he said again, more firmly this time. What's going on? Evelyn's mouth went dry. She wanted to tell him the truth, to thrust the file into his hands and demand he open his eyes. But Jada's words echoed in her head like a siren. Don't trust him. So she smiled, or tried to. It's nothing, sweetheart, just talking. Lucas's eyes narrowed. He glanced at Jada, then back at his mother. Talking about what? Your wife! Jada blurted out before Evelyn could stop her. Lucas stiffened. Excuse me? She's dangerous, Jada said. Her voice was low but unwavering. And I can prove it. Evelyn's stomach clenched. This was too much. Too fast. Lucas's face darkened, his jaw tight. You don't even know her, he snapped. You don't know what you're talking about. Evelyn reached out, placing a trembling hand on her son's arm. Lucas, please, just listen. There are things you don't know. Things... Stop. He jerked his arm away, his voice rising. I'm not going to sit here and listen to you and some stranger trash my wife while she's fighting for her life in the next room. The words cut Evelyn deeper than she expected. Fighting for her life. That should have been Evelyn in that hospital bed. And if Jada was right, Kendra wasn't a victim. She was the architect of this entire nightmare. But Lucas couldn't or wouldn't see it. She tried again, her voice cracking. "Lucas, please, I need you to trust me." Her son stared at her, his expression caught between anger and something else. Fear, maybe, or guilt. Finally, he shook his head. "I can't do this right now." He turned and stormed out, the door slamming shut behind him. The silence that followed was suffocating. Evelyn collapsed into a chair, her hands shaking violently. "He doesn't believe me," she whispered. "My own son." Jada crouched beside her, her dark eyes steady. "Of course he doesn't. Not yet. That's what makes this so dangerous. People like your daughter-in-law, they know how to twist things, how to make themselves look like the victim." Evelyn pressed her hands to her face, hot tears leaking through her fingers. She had raised Lucas alone, carried him through every hardship, sacrificed her own dreams for his future. And now, when she needed him most, he was slipping away. Jada's voice dropped to a whisper. "There's something else you need to know, Evelyn. Something about your son." Evelyn's breath caught. She lowered her hands slowly, her eyes locking on Jada's. "What are you talking about?" Jada hesitated, her expression grim. I think he may have already helped her before, without even realizing it." The room tilted. Evelyn's chest tightened, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. Her son, the one person she thought she could trust, might have been part of this nightmare all along. Evelyn sat frozen in the break room, Jada's words echoing. He may have already helped her before. Her heart rebelled against the idea. No, not Lucas, not her boy. But Jada's face was grave, her tone unshakable. "Listen to me. I've seen this pattern before. These people, they don't just poison bodies. They poison trust. They make the ones closest to you part of the plan without them ever realizing it." Jada pulled another sheet from her file and slid it across the table. It was a copy of a life insurance policy, Evelyn's name typed neatly at the top. Evelyn's eyes widened. This is my policy." Jada nodded. "Taken out last year. But look at the beneficiary." Her hands trembled as she scanned the page. Not Lucas, not even her church charity, where she had once planned to leave a gift. The beneficiary listed was Kendra Harper Montgomery. Evelyn's stomach lurched. How did she even— Her voice broke. She pressed a hand against her mouth. I never signed this." "She didn't need you to," Jada said grimly. "She needed Lucas. All it takes is a spouse and a son who trusts her. A few signatures here and there. Documents slipped into a stack. Do you see? He might have thought he was helping with finances, but really, he was handing her the keys." Evelyn's chest tightened, every breath sharp. Her son, might have signed away her life without even realizing it. Her memories flooded with details that now seemed sinister. The night Lucas insisted she let Kendra organize the bills. The casual way he had said, "Mom, just trust her. She's good with paperwork." Kendra's gentle smile as she tucked documents back into her purse. The pieces slammed together like shards of glass. "No," Evelyn whispered. "He didn't know. He couldn't have known." "Of course not," Jada said. "That's how people like her work. They make good men into pawns." Tears blurred Evelyn's vision. She thought of Lucas as a boy, running across the front yard with his scraped knees, calling out for her when he was hurt. She thought of all the nights she stayed up late helping him study, of the years she worked double shifts to pay his tuition. And now, this. Jada reached across the table, her hand firm on Evelyn's. "You need to face the truth. She's been planning this for a long time, and she's been using him to do it." Evelyn's hand shook beneath Jada's grip. "Then what do we do?" Jada's eyes darkened. She slid the rest of the file forward. "First, we find out who else she's done this to." Evelyn opened the folder. Inside were more names, more policies, More faces of people who had died suddenly, their loved ones left with questions no one dared to answer. And as she turned the last page, her heart froze. Because staring back at her wasn't a stranger. It was a photograph of a woman she had known for years, a woman from her own church. And beside that photo was Kendra. The photograph slipped from Evelyn's hands and landed on the table. Her throat went dry. The face staring up at her was unmistakable. Margaret Cole. Margaret, her pew partner at First Baptist Atlanta. Margaret, who had always saved a seat beside her on Sundays. Margaret, who had driven her to doctor's appointments after her knee surgery. Gone. Evelyn's fingers trembled as she picked the page back up. This has to be a mistake. Jada shook her head. Margaret passed away last winter, right? Yes, but she was ill. She had heart trouble. Evelyn's voice faltered. She remembered Margaret's soft laugh, her gentle way of pressing peppermints into Evelyn's hand before the service began. She wasn't supposed to die that soon, Jada said quietly. Look here, she pointed at the sheet. Insurance payout. Beneficiary listed as... Evelyn's stomach twisted before Jada even finished. Kendra Harper. Evelyn staggered back in her chair, pressing a hand to her chest. She was in my church, in my life. Jada nodded grimly. This is her pattern. She inserts herself into circles where people are already vulnerable. Seniors, widows, anyone alone. She builds trust, sometimes through family, sometimes through friendship. Then she waits. But why Margaret? Evelyn whispered. Because she fit the profile, and because you did too. The words cut deeper than any blade. Her mind flashed back. Margaret's sudden decline, the funeral, Kendra's quiet, supportive presence at the wake. She had thought it odd at the time how attentive Kendra was, hugging people she hardly knew, offering to handle details. It hadn't been kindness. It had been reconnaissance. The nausea swelled. Evelyn stumbled toward the restroom, gripping the table as the walls seemed to close in. Her reflection in the mirror looked foreign. Pale skin, eyes wide with panic. For a moment she felt dizzy, her breath sharp. Am I sick now? Did she... Already. When Evelyn returned, Jada was already laying out more files. This isn't just about you, or Margaret. Look. Name after name, policy after policy, death after sudden, unexplained death. The dates stretched back nearly a decade, and Kendra's name, or a variant of it, appeared again and again. She's been perfecting this for years, Jada said. Always close to the family, always trusted, and by the time anyone notices, it's too late. Evelyn's hands clenched into fists. If she's been doing this for that long, then how many more? Exactly, Jada cut in. Which is why we can't waste time. Evelyn, she's not done with you yet. In fact, I think you're her biggest play. Evelyn blinked. What do you mean? Jada leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Margaret was the rehearsal. You're the main act. Evelyn's heart skipped as the door to the break room creaked open. Both women froze, and standing there, smiling faintly, was Lucas. Kendra said you might be here, Mom. She was worried about you. Lucas leaned against the doorway, casual on the surface, but his eyes flicked between Evelyn and Jada with a sharpness that unsettled her. Mom, he said gently, you shouldn't be stressing yourself out like this. Kendra told me you've been paranoid lately, that you've been accusing her of things that aren't true. The words landed like stones in Evelyn's chest. She told him? I'm not paranoid, Evelyn said firmly, though her voice quivered. I know what I've seen, what I've felt. Lucas stepped further in, lowering his tone as though speaking to a fragile patient. Mom, you've been through so much since Dad passed. It's natural to feel anxious. But you've got to stop letting strangers, he gestured toward Jada, fill your head with nonsense. Evelyn's breath caught. That patronizing tone. It wasn't her son's voice. It was Kendra's. Jada's eyes narrowed, but she stayed quiet, letting Evelyn decide which side to take. "Lucas," Evelyn whispered, her eyes brimming. "Do you remember Margaret Cole, from church?" Lucas frowned. "Yeah. What about her?" "She trusted Kendra, and now she's gone." Evelyn's voice cracked. "This isn't paranoia. This is real. And if you don't believe me, then—" Lucas raised a hand, his jaw tightening. "Don't do this, Mom. Don't make me choose between you and my wife." The room went silent. Evelyn's heart shattered at the ultimatum hidden in his words. Jada finally spoke, her tone calm but razor-sharp. "Lucas, if you truly believe Kendra's innocent, then you should have no problem letting us compare some records. Transparency clears everyone, right?" Lucas shifted uncomfortably. His gaze darted to the papers on the table, the insurance forms Evelyn had seen moments earlier. "I don't know what this is," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Evelyn caught it, the flicker of doubt in his eyes. He had signed something without realizing what it was. He had helped Kendra, and the realization tore her in two. "My son didn't betray me," she told herself desperately. He didn't know. He couldn't know. But another voice whispered back. Or maybe he did. Maybe love isn't enough to blind him anymore. The ache of betrayal pressed down on her chest until she could hardly breathe. Lucas stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "Mom," he murmured, "you have to let this go. For your own good. Please, don't make me regret telling Kendra where you were tonight." Evelyn's blood ran cold. Evelyn hadn't even made it home that night before the call came. Her phone lit up with Lucas's number, but when she answered, it wasn't her son's voice she heard. "Hi, Evelyn." The tone was warm, sugary, unmistakable. "It's Kendra." Evelyn gripped the steering wheel tighter. "What do you want?" Kendra's laugh rang through the speaker, light and rehearsed. "Oh, don't sound so tense. I just thought we could put this unpleasantness behind us. Lucas is worried sick about you. Why don't you come by for dinner tomorrow? Just the three of us. No drama, no outsiders." Her gaze flicked to the folder Jada had left her with. The policies, the names, Margaret's photo. Every instinct screamed trap. But Kendra's voice purred on. "You'll come, won't you? It would mean so much to Lucas." "I don't think that's a good idea," Evelyn said cautiously. There was a pause. Then Kendra's voice dropped, softer, but with a steel edge beneath. "Evelyn, families need unity, and families who refuse to stay united, they have a way of breaking apart. You wouldn't want that, would you?" The implied threat crawled down Evelyn's spine like ice. This wasn't a dinner invitation. This was a warning. That night, Evelyn sat at her kitchen table staring at the calendar. Her heart pulled in two directions. If she refused the invitation, she risked pushing Lucas further into Kendra's grip. If she accepted, she might be walking straight into a trap. Her hand shook as she dialed Jada's number. "She wants me to come to dinner," Evelyn whispered when Jada answered. The line went silent for a moment. Then Jada said, "Good. That's exactly what we need." Evelyn blinked. "What? You're going, but this time, you won't be alone." The following evening, Evelyn dressed slowly, choosing her navy blouse, the one she always wore to important events. She wanted strength, even if she didn't feel it. Lucas met her at the door, his smile forced but eager. "Mom, I'm glad you came." And then Kendra appeared, radiant, poised, a picture of hospitality in a cream dress. She kissed Evelyn's cheek lightly. "You look wonderful. Come in, sit down. I made your favorite, roast chicken. You'll feel right at home." The table gleamed with candles. The aroma of herbs filled the air. Everything looked perfect. But Evelyn's eyes caught a single detail that froze her blood. Her glass, already poured. Red wine. Waiting. Kendra's smile widened as she gestured toward the table. "Please, Evelyn, Drink. Eat. Tonight is about family. Evelyn sat down, her hand hovering near the stem of the glass. And that's when she noticed it, just faintly, under the lip of the glass, a small smear of powder clinging to the rim. Her pulse thundered. Kendra was watching her closely. The clink of silverware and the soft hum of the dishwasher filled the silence. On the surface, it was the picture of a family meal. Roast chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, green beans tossed in butter. But Evelyn couldn't take her eyes off the glass in front of her. Red wine. Deep, velvety. Waiting. Kendra sat across from her, posture perfect, her eyes bright but watchful. Lucas filled his mother's plate, smiling nervously, oblivious, or pretending to be. So, Kendra began lightly, carving into her chicken. I hope we can all put this unpleasant tension behind us. Families should be united. Don't you agree, Evelyn? Evelyn's throat tightened. Unity is important, she said carefully. But unity built on lies doesn't last. Kendra's smile flickered for the briefest moment before snapping back into place. Lucas lifted his own glass, taking a sip. He didn't notice, or maybe his drink was different. Kendra leaned closer, her eyes glittering. Please, Evelyn, try the wine. It's a special vintage I ordered just for tonight. Her heart pounded. She could feel Kendra's gaze boring into her. Slowly, Evelyn reached for the glass. Her hand brushed the stem. Her fingers trembled. Then, deliberately, she tipped it. The glass toppled, spilling deep red across the white linen tablecloth. The wine spread like blood. Oh, my clumsy hands, Evelyn said lightly, forcing a small laugh. Kendra froze, just for a beat. Then she let out a musical laugh of her own. No matter. Accidents happen. But her eyes were ice. Mom, Lucas said quickly, reaching for a napkin. Don't worry. I'll get you another glass. No, Evelyn said firmly, her hand shooting out to stop him. Her grip was stronger than she expected. I'll stick to water tonight. Lucas looked between them, confusion clouding his face. You two, you're making this harder than it has to be. Why can't you just... Because some things shouldn't be swallowed, Evelyn cut in, her eyes never leaving Kendra's. Kendra's fork clinked softly against her plate as she set it down. Evelyn, she said smoothly, if you keep looking for enemies, you'll lose your family. The air in the room thickened. Kendra's voice was calm, but her jaw was rigid, her fingers drumming against the table. For the first time, Evelyn saw the crack in the mask, the fury simmering just beneath. You've built this fantasy in your head, Kendra whispered, but fantasies have a way of becoming self-fulfilling. People who distrust too much end up very, very alone. The words slid across the table like a blade. Lucas shifted uneasily. Kendra, that's enough. But Evelyn raised her chin. I may end up alone, she said steadily, but at least I'll still be alive. Kendra's smile returned, sharp and deliberate. She stood, smoothing her dress, and gathered the spilled napkin with slow precision. Enjoy your water then, Evelyn, she said softly. I'll just have to find another way. The words hung heavy in the air. Evelyn's breath caught, because she knew, with terrifying certainty, this wasn't over. This was only the beginning. That night, Evelyn barely slept. She lay awake, replaying every second of the dinner. Kendra's fixed smile, Lucas's pleading eyes, the poisoned wine staining the tablecloth like a warning. By dawn, she convinced herself she had exaggerated. Maybe the smear on the glass was just dust. Maybe Kendra's words were only sharp from stress. Maybe she was truly imagining things. Then her phone buzzed. A text message. No name, just an unknown number. 3 words. Stay silent, Evelyn. Her hand shook as she read it again. By mid-morning, Evelyn decided to get out of the house. She drove to her local grocery store, forcing herself into the comfort of routine: milk, bread, her favorite lemon tea. The ordinary hum of suburban life gave her fragile relief. But when she returned home, something was wrong. The front door was unlocked. Her breath caught. She always locked it. Always. Evelyn stepped inside, her pulse thundering. The living room looked undisturbed. But as she entered the kitchen, her stomach lurched. The folder Jada had given her, the insurance policies, the photographs, was gone. In its place, sitting neatly on the counter, was a single glass of red wine. Panicked, Evelyn called Lucas. Her voice shook as she told him what had happened. He arrived within 20 minutes, his tie loosened from work, his expression tight. He walked through the rooms, inspecting, then turned to her with a sigh. "Mom, there's no sign of forced entry. Maybe you misplaced the papers. Maybe you just left the door open." "I didn't," Evelyn snapped. "I know I didn't, and someone left this." She pointed to the glass on the counter. Lucas frowned. "Maybe it was me. Maybe I left it there the last time we visited." But she saw the hesitation in his eyes. He didn't believe his own excuse. That evening, Jada came by after Evelyn begged her for help. "They're tightening the screws," Jada said grimly as she inspected the counter. "This isn't about scaring you anymore. This is about control. They want you too afraid to fight back." Evelyn sat at the table, her head in her hands. She has Lucas. She has my trust. And now she has the evidence. What else is there to take? Jada's eyes narrowed. "Your life." The phone rang again. Evelyn reached for it with trembling hands. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a voicemail. Kendra's voice, cheerful as ever. "Hi, Evelyn. Just checking in. I heard you had a little break-in today. Awful thing, isn't it? Atlanta's not as safe as it used to be. But don't worry. I'll always know where to find you." The message ended with the faint sound of clinking glass. Sunday arrived, and with it, Evelyn's weekly ritual, the church potluck in Midtown Atlanta. Normally, she found peace in these gatherings, the smell of fried chicken, the soft hum of gospel music, the warmth of familiar faces. But today, her heart raced, because today she planned to speak. She told Jada that morning, "If I don't say something now, I never will. They'll think I'm crazy. But if I stay quiet, Kendra wins." Jada looked her straight in the eye. "Then you speak. Even if no one listens at first, you speak." Evelyn nodded, clutching her tote bag with trembling hands. Inside were photocopies Jada had made, copies of the documents that hadn't been stolen. They were thin, fragile threads of proof, but they were something. The fellowship hall bustled with life, long tables lined with casseroles and peach cobblers stretched under the fluorescent lights. Children darted between chairs while elderly neighbors settled into their usual spots. Evelyn's son, Lucas, arrived late with Kendra at his side. Kendra's smile was radiant, her laughter bright enough to turn heads. She hugged people warmly, asking about their families, their health. To anyone watching, she was the perfect daughter-in-law. But when her eyes locked with Evelyn's across the room, her smile sharpened, more blade than warmth. As everyone settled to eat, Evelyn stood. Her voice wavered at first, but the room grew quiet. I need to say something important." Dozens of eyes turned to her. She clutched the papers in her hand. "For weeks now, I've been receiving threats, and I believe—" She hesitated, her throat tight. "I believe someone close to me is trying to hurt me." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Lucas's face flushed. "Mom, please," he whispered, his voice tight with embarrassment. Evelyn's hands shook as she raised the papers. "This isn't just in my head. There are documents, insurance policies, financial statements, things I never signed, but someone did. Someone wants me gone." Kendra gasped, her hand over her mouth in a perfect mask of shock. "Oh, Evelyn," she said softly, eyes glistening with crocodile tears. "You've been under so much stress. I think maybe we should talk about getting you help. The crowd shifted uneasily. Whispers spread. Maybe it's dementia. Poor woman, she's alone too much. She's imagining things. Lucas stood abruptly, gently taking the papers from Evelyn's hands. Enough. Please, Mom. You need rest. Let's not do this here. The humiliation was unbearable. The papers slipped from her grasp, fluttering to the floor like fallen leaves. No one picked them up. Kendra knelt, gathering them with practiced sympathy, and patted Evelyn's arm. We'll take care of you. Don't worry. The crowd nodded. Pity filled their eyes, and Evelyn knew in that moment she had lost. But later, as she sat in her car gripping the steering wheel, her phone buzzed again. Another text from the same unknown number. This time, just 2 chilling words. Nice try. The following week blurred into a haze of weakness. Evelyn's mornings began with trembling hands and a bitter taste at the back of her throat. Her joints ached, her mind fogged. Some days she couldn't recall if she had eaten breakfast or if she had locked the front door. At first, she told herself it was stress. But then the dizziness began, sharp, sudden spells that left her gripping the counter to steady herself. Lucas insisted she see her doctor. He drove her to St. Joseph's Medical Center in downtown Atlanta. Dr. Patel, a kind-faced woman in her 40s, ran a battery of tests: blood pressure, heart rate, blood work. Evelyn sat there on the exam table, clutching her purse, praying someone would finally see what she felt. But when Dr. Patel returned, she only smiled gently. Your labs are normal, Evelyn. There's some mild dehydration, maybe early hypertension. Nothing unusual for your age. Evelyn shook her head. No, it's not just age. Something is wrong. I can feel it. Dr. Patel's smile wavered. She glanced at Lucas, who sat in the corner, arms crossed. Sometimes stress can make the body react this way, the doctor said carefully. Have you thought about counseling? Evelyn's stomach dropped. Counseling. The same word Kendra had used. That night, Kendra dropped by with a tray of homemade soup. She set it on Evelyn's counter, her tone sweet as syrup. You need nourishment, she said, ladling steaming broth into a bowl. Eat. Rest. Let us take care of you. Evelyn's hand trembled as she lifted the spoon. She hesitated, staring into the broth. The steam curled upward, carrying a faint bitterness she couldn't quite place. Kendra tilted her head. Something wrong? Evelyn forced a smile, lifting the spoon to her lips. The liquid burned going down, and an odd numbness lingered on her tongue. Kendra's smile widened. Good. That's good. Days later, Lucas stopped by, tension in his face. Mom, he began, sitting stiffly on the sofa. You embarrassed me. Embarrassed Kendra at church. Everyone's talking about it. Evelyn swallowed hard. I had to try, Lucas. She's not who you think she is. She's... Stop, he snapped, his voice breaking. Kendra's the best thing that's ever happened to me. She stood by me through everything. And you're making her life miserable. His words cut deeper than she expected. When he stormed out, Kendra lingered at the doorway. She looked back at Evelyn, her lips barely moving. Careful, she whispered. You're running out of allies. That night, Evelyn woke gasping for air. Her chest tightened, her vision blurred. She staggered to the bathroom mirror and nearly collapsed at the sight, her skin pale, her lips tinged faintly blue. She reached for her phone, her trembling fingers dialing Jada's number. But before the call could connect, her phone buzzed with a new text from the unknown number. Breathe while you can. The phone slipped from her grasp, clattering to the floor. The screen lit up with Jada's face calling back, but Evelyn couldn't pick it up. She clutched the sink, sliding to the cold tile, her breath shallow and ragged. When Evelyn opened her eyes, harsh fluorescent light greeted her. The steady beep-beep of a heart monitor pulsed at her side. A thin tube was taped to her wrist, feeding fluids into her veins. For a moment, Relief flooded her. She was alive. Then she heard the voices. "Doctor, she's been so confused lately." Kendra's syrupy voice floated through the room. "Sometimes she forgets things. She's even accused me of trying to hurt her. It's heartbreaking." Evelyn's stomach twisted. "I see," Dr. Baines replied, clipboard in hand. "We'll schedule a cognitive evaluation. Could be early dementia." "No," Evelyn croaked, her voice raw. "I'm not confused. Someone's trying to kill me." The doctor gave her a soft, pitying smile, the same one Dr. Patel had used. "We'll take good care of you. Don't worry." Lucas entered a moment later, his face lined with exhaustion. He sat at her bedside, taking her hand. "Mom," he whispered, "you have to stop. The accusations, the paranoia, it's tearing us apart." Tears filled Evelyn's eyes. "Lucas, please, listen to me. Kendra isn't who you think. She's dangerous." Lucas shook his head, his grip tightening. "She loves me. She's been nothing but good to you. You're sick, Mom. Just, please accept the help." His words echoed in the sterile room, heavy as stone. Later that evening, after Lucas and Kendra had gone, Evelyn drifted in and out of restless sleep. At one point, she awoke to find someone standing near the foot of her bed. It wasn't a nurse. The young woman wore a hospital volunteer's badge, her hair tucked under a cap. She glanced around the room before stepping closer. "You don't know me," she whispered, "but I know her. Kendra. And I believe you." Evelyn's breath caught. The woman's eyes burned with a quiet fire. "My grandmother died last year. Same hospital, same symptoms. And Kendra was her caregiver." Evelyn's heart pounded. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't confusion. There was a pattern. Before she could speak, the woman pressed a folded paper into her palm. "Read this when you're alone. My name's Naomi. I'll come back." Then, as quickly as she'd appeared, she slipped out the door. Evelyn unfolded the note under the dim glow of the monitor. Scrawled in hurried pen were just 6 words. "You're not her first. Not even close." The paper trembled in Evelyn's hand. For the first time, she realized this wasn't just about her survival. This was about stopping a predator. The next morning, Evelyn sat upright in her hospital bed, the note clutched beneath her blanket like contraband. Nurses came and went. Lucas dropped by briefly before work, his concern perfunctory. Kendra hovered, ever smiling, spoon-feeding Evelyn oatmeal as though nothing were amiss. But Evelyn's heart raced with anticipation. Because Naomi had promised she'd return. Just after visiting hours began, Naomi slipped quietly into the room. She carried a file folder tucked beneath her arm, her volunteer badge flashing in the fluorescent light. Evelyn's eyes widened. "You came back." Naomi nodded. "I don't have much time, but you need to see this." She spread the folder across Evelyn's lap. Inside were photocopied obituaries, medical notes, and faded photographs. "My grandmother, Lillian Parker," Naomi said, pointing to a smiling older woman in one of the photos. "She was strong, healthy. Then, within 6 months of hiring a new caregiver, she started declining. Confusion, heart arrhythmias. She died suddenly." Evelyn's hands trembled as she traced the edges of the photo. Naomi continued, flipping to the next sheet. "I started digging, and I found others. 3 women, 2 men, all in their 60s or 70s, all in the Atlanta area, all with sudden, unexplained declines." She paused, her jaw tight. "And in every case, one name appears in their records. Kendra." Evelyn's stomach turned cold. How could no one see this?" Naomi shook her head. "Because she's smart. She doesn't leave obvious marks. She poisons slowly, substances that mimic natural heart failure or dementia. Doctors chalk it up to age. Families grieve. No one questions." She leaned closer. "Until you." Evelyn swallowed hard. The weight of Naomi's words pressed down on her chest. This wasn't just her fight anymore. Kendra had left a trail of bodies, hidden in plain sight. The door creaked open. Lucas stepped inside, holding a cup of coffee. His eyes narrowed as he spotted Naomi. "Who's this?" Naomi straightened, hiding the folder under her arm. "Just a volunteer checking in." Lucas forced a polite smile. "Thanks, but my mom needs rest." Naomi gave Evelyn a subtle nod before slipping out. As soon as she was gone, Lucas sighed, setting the coffee on the bedside table. "Mom, you've got to stop letting strangers fill your head with nonsense. Kendra and I are doing everything to take care of you. Please, trust us." Evelyn stared at him, her heart breaking. He didn't see it. He couldn't. That night, as Evelyn lay awake, her phone buzzed again with another anonymous text. This time, it wasn't just words. It was a photo, a grainy image of Naomi, taken inside the hospital. The message beneath it read, "If she keeps digging, she'll end up like the others." Evelyn's blood ran cold. 2 nights after Naomi's warning, Evelyn was discharged from the hospital under family care. Against her protests, Kendra insisted Evelyn come stay with her and Lucas. Naomi managed to slip Evelyn one final file before they left. Inside were bank records and property transfers. Dozens of them. Kendra wasn't just after Evelyn's assets. She had been systematically targeting elderly patients for years, siphoning money, transferring deeds, and funneling everything into hidden accounts. And Evelyn's name was next on the list. But what chilled Evelyn most wasn't the money. It was the signatures. Dozens of forged ones, neat and practiced, her own among them. Kendra hadn't just been poisoning her. She'd been slowly erasing her. The second twist, Lucas. Seized the truth at Kendra's house that evening, Evelyn sat weak in a guest room, her body still trembling. Lucas hovered nearby, uneasy but loyal to his wife. Until, by accident, he opened the wrong drawer in Kendra's study. Inside, vials, syringes, and stacks of files with names. Elderly names. Some crossed out. Others, like his mother's, circled in red. And in the middle of it all, an open journal. The entries were chilling. Detailed notes of dosages, symptoms, projected death dates. His mother's final decline was scheduled within weeks. Lucas staggered back, bile rising in his throat. The woman he loved was a predator, and his silence had made him her accomplice. Lucas burst into the guest room. "Mom, get up, now!" Evelyn's eyes widened at his panic. "What is it?" He shook his head, tears spilling. "You were right. God, you were right. We have to go." But it was too late. Kendra appeared in the doorway, her calm smile masking the knife in her hand. "You should have stayed quiet, Lucas." What followed was chaos. Lucas grappling with her, Evelyn crawling toward the phone, Naomi arriving just in time with Detective Ramirez, the officer she'd been feeding information to. Within minutes, Kendra was in handcuffs, her mask finally shattered. In court, the full scope of her crimes unraveled. 6 confirmed deaths, dozens of financial thefts. Evelyn's testimony, bolstered by Naomi's evidence, sealed the conviction. Kendra was sentenced to life without parole. Lucas wept openly during the hearing, torn between grief for the woman he thought he loved and guilt for nearly letting his own mother die. Evelyn forgave him. Not easily, not quickly, but eventually. And Naomi? She became like family, the granddaughter Evelyn never had. Together, they started a foundation for elder abuse awareness, speaking publicly about what had happened. In Evelyn's final voiceover to the audience, "They wanted me silent, forgotten, erased. But I am Evelyn Carter. I am still here, and I will never be quiet again." If you've been with me until the end of Evelyn's story, thank you. This wasn't just about survival. It was about seeing the evil hiding in plain sight. Tell me in the comments, did you expect the ending? And more importantly, what would you have done if you were Evelyn? Subscribe now, because the next story I bring you will make you question everyone you trust.